Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about CW's hit show Arrow, based on the comic book Green Arrow, and I'd like to highlight a couple differences between the comic book it comes from and the actual show itself, and talk about maybe some changes that could occur if it were produced on a slightly lower scale, and some lessons that we can take from the show. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Arrow is based on, as I said, the DC comic book Green Arrow series, which has been running for quite a long time and is just now recently starting to get the attention I think it deserves to get. A couple differences between the show and the comic book. Like any book to screen adaptation, there are inherent differences, but this one seems to take a lot of liberties with villains and adding characters that weren't originally in the comic book, and I think the changes that they do make, while some being rather drastic, help to keep the show on its feet, just because it makes for a more interesting visual display, as opposed to a comic book where you get stills and you kind of have to imagine a lot of the action. I would think that with an independently produced show, they would stick a little more to the comic books, but would probably have a lot lower budget than CW would, and therefore wouldn't be able to pull off as many of the effects and maybe choreograph the fight scenes as well as they do, or even get the actors that needed to be. I mean, Stephen Amell plays a great Green Arrow in the show, in my opinion. I can't see anybody else in the role, really. As far as the challenges in the show, they've taken a lot of villains out of the DC universe and thrown them in Green Arrow's way. He was never really famous for his gigantic rogues gallery like maybe Batman would be, but you do see a lot of lower end Batman villains such as Deathstroke, Firefly, a Deadshot, people that Green Arrow really shouldn't have any kind of run-ins with, but by pulling those characters out of the DC universe and throwing them into the show, it creates a sense of familiarity for comic book readers and puts on a good visual display for anybody else who happens to be watching. Why use Green Arrow for a show? I mean, there's a giant list of superheroes that could be used for a show. But Green Arrow has started to get a lot of attention lately with his incarnations in a lot of animated features like Justice League Unlimited, and various animated DC films. And I guess CW decided that now was a good time to go ahead and cash in on the Green Arrow cow. And thus far, I think they're doing a great job. The show has a huge following. The second thing I want to get to is life lessons that we can all get from the show. Comic books have been teaching kids for decades to do your homework and eat your vegetables, stand up for the little guy, and all that. You know, all the, I want to say cliches, but you know, they're kind of important. But when you look at the show, it seems a lot more adult than I think anybody expected it to look. But even in adult shows, we can pull away valuable, fundamental life lessons. In the show, there are a lot of flashbacks to five-year back flashbacks to where Oliver Queen is stranded on an island after being shipwrecked. And upon arriving on the island, he's an arrogant playboy who with no survival experience whatsoever, and that has to get dropped really, really quick if he wants to make it on this island. He meets up with two other castaways, Shadow and Slade. Spoiler alert, Slade becomes Deathstroke, for those of you not familiar with DC Comics. And during their 5 years on the island, they become very, very close with each other. Like I think anybody would be with any other human being stranded on an island. But they're working really hard to get off the island and just stick together, and you see the camaraderie that builds between them, and it's really kind of heartwarming to know that even in the most dire situations you can have friends. Unfortunately, that friendship does not pay off as well as we want to believe it does, as through a series of unfortunate events where Shadow is killed and Slade holds Oliver responsible, Slade and Oliver are just at ends, and seeing the deterioration of such a solid friendship is almost kind of heartbreaking. So when Oliver finally gets off the island and gets back home, he's on this real lone wolf type of mentality to carry on with his heroics. But he figures out throughout the show that you can't do it alone. Even Batman can't do it alone. And throughout the show, he recruits John Diggle, a former security guard, Felicity Smoke, who is a IT whiz at his company, and throughout he recruits Sarah Lance, who becomes Black Canary, and he puts together a team Arrow, essentially, and it's really nice to see those walls get broken down, and it just shows that sometimes you can't do it alone. You got to have friends. And overall, the show is great. I love it. Anyone that I know who has seen it loves it. But I'll let you judge that for yourself. Thanks for watching.